The click of a camera, the hum of digital noise, the background becomes metallic. Imagine you're standing in a gallery. A painting stands before you, quiet, cold, with perfect symmetry. It gives you goosebumps, anxiety, and delight. And then someone nearby whispers, "An algorithm painted it." Everything changes. What do you feel, admiration or betrayal? Welcome to OtherSide, a space where we explore what remains of the soul when art becomes code. Today, AI and the authenticity of art. Where is the line between genius and generation, and who now decides what is real? A human or an algorithm? Is art still real when the artist is a machine? Artificial intelligence today is more than just a tool. It is an artist, a screenwriter, a designer, a composer. To understand how this is possible, we need to look inside the machine. Midjourney is a neural network trained on millions of images labeled with words. You enter text, and the model understands it statistically. Not meaning, but probability. The word rain often appears next to umbrella and city lights. So that's the picture of rain. The machine's brain is a set of weights and connections, not emotions. But each weight reflects a pattern it's sensed across millions of examples. DALL-E from OpenAI works differently. It learns the relationship between text and image. Each word is transformed into a vector, a mathematical coordinate of meaning. When you enter the phrase "girl in golden sunset light," the machine literally draws a formula for light and form. Runway is a video tool. It teaches the machine to understand movement, composition, light, and even frame rhythm. Essentially, this is a new director who doesn't know what inspiration is, but knows exactly what works. The machine doesn't dream, but it imitates dreams. It doesn't hear music, but it knows the formula for harmony. It doesn't feel pain, but it statistically calculates what pain looks like. And that's the irony. AI has learned to reproduce feelings without experiencing them. If this were a tarot reading, the machine would have drawn the magician card, one who controls the elements, but is not of them. It knows how miracles are created, but is incapable of experiencing them. It all began in 2018. Portrait of Edmond de Bellamy, a painting created by an algorithm, sold at Christie's for $432,000. People applauded, some cried. They cried over a painting painted by someone who doesn't know what tears are. Maybe that's the point. Art isn't suffering, but perception. Then came Beeple, a digital artist whose work, Every Day's the First 5,000 Days, sold for $69 million. He also uses AI. The difference is that Beeple says frankly, "I'm not afraid of machines, I'm afraid of losing my taste." Rifik Anadol is a Turkish artist who creates living installations from memory data. He collects thousands of images, analyzes them with algorithms, and transforms them into fluid worlds of light. People stand in front of them and cry, and then they discover not a single frame was created by a human. AI Fashion Week, a show in New York where the models, clothes, and stage were generated by a neural network. It didn't physically exist, but the public discussed the design as if it were on the runway. AI musicians are already releasing albums. The voice, the melody, the lyrics, everything is generated. Some of them sound more emotional than real pop music. And finally, deepfake actors, commercials, films, brands. A neural network creates a face, a gesture, an emotion, and you believe it. You know it's fake, but your brain still reacts to it as if it were real. Maybe authenticity never exists at all. Artists are outraged. They say AI doesn't feel. It steals, imitates, kills craft, and turns inspiration into an algorithm. Cartoonist Sarah Anderson discovered that thousands of her drawings ended up in the Midjourney learning database. Her style is being used, and she didn't even know she had become a teacher for a machine. Other artists are filing class action lawsuits. AI copies my style, so it's plagiarism. The problem is that the law has no definition of algorithmic inspiration. In 2023, a US court ruled that paintings created entirely by AI are not copyrightable. The paradox is that if a person clicked the generate button, they're not the author. But if they slightly tweaked the color, they are already the author. Where is the line drawn? Where does the human end and the code begin? AI is accused of uniformity. It creates visual sterility, killing randomness, tremors, and imperfection, the very thing that makes art come alive. If this were a spread, it would land on the moon. Illusion, self-deception, reflection. We see art, but perhaps we're simply looking at a reflection of our data. But there's another side to this story. AI isn't destructive, but a tool for expanding perception. It doesn't rob artists of their souls, it gives them back their time. AI isn't replacing artists, it's replacing boredom. This was what Refik Anadol said at the unsupervised exhibition at MoMA. He loaded the entire collection of a modern art museum into a model and let the algorithm dream based on human creations. The result can't be described as a copy. It's like the dream of a museum that has finally seen itself. Directors use AI to compose shots before filming. Photographers use it to create impossible light. Architects use it to see a building that hasn't yet been built. AI doesn't steal art, it steals limitations. It removes the wall between idea and realization. And yet without humans, it's empty. You enter a prompt, it responds. But you choose the meaning. New generation artists aren't afraid of AI. They talk to it. Here's a quote from Sofia Crespo, an artist who creates hybrid images of animals and machines. I use AI to remember what nature never invented. This is the new language of art, symbiosis. If this were a tarot spread, it would be the star card's time to shine. She's not human, but she guides the traveler in the darkness. We're used to measuring authenticity by its origin. The master's hand, the brushstroke, the signature. But in the digital age, authenticity has changed its address. It's no longer on the canvas, but in the intention. You can paint a picture with Midjourney, but if there's an idea, pain, or emotion behind it, it's yours. The problem isn't the machine. The problem is us if we stop feeling, because that's not human. If it moves you, it's art. People said, humans don't lose meaning to technology. They lose meaning when they stop asking why. And that's the key. AI doesn't ask why, it simply creates. But it's humans who answer the question, the purpose of all this. If this were a reading, justice would come up. Not cold justice, but balance. Between code and feeling, logic and poetry. Now let's step aside. If a machine can draw, can it predict? The internet already knows the answer. AI tarot readers. Apps that draw cards, analyze the text of the question, and based on your phrase, provide a prediction. You write, "Will I find love?" AI looks at the statistics of emotions in millions of similar questions and produces an answer, formatted as a spread. But it doesn't sense your state. It doesn't see your eyes, doesn't hear your intonation. It simply calculates a probable answer that will be easier for you to accept. A human tarot reader reads a symbol, a machine reads a pattern. You tell your story, it suggests a plot. The irony is that a neural network is often more accurate, because it's not a projection, but a pure mirror of your text. Maybe intuition is just a pattern we don't understand yet. If this were a spread, AI would be a hermit. It observes, analyzes, seeks truth in numbers, and a person remains a fool, walking, not knowing the way, but believing that it exists. An AI fortune teller doesn't kill mysticism. It shows how mystical statistics themselves have always been. First, don't be afraid of machines. The only thing to fear is soulless imitation. Second, use AI to speed up your craft, but don't use it to replace your inner chaos. Third, leave a mark. Show your process, your mistakes, your doubts. That's your signature. Fourth, make meaning the most important thing, not the tool. Algorithms don't know pain, but you do. That's the whole advantage of being human. And finally, fifth, don't try to compete with speed. Win with depth. We say we're afraid of losing art. But maybe we're simply afraid to see how long ago it ceased to be human. Filters, algorithms, recommendations, all of this is already part of creativity. We create based on the principle of what works. AI simply honestly reflects this mechanics. Modern artists don't paint with oils, they paint with metadata, algorithms, hashtags, trends. Authenticity has become a function of demand. The machine has merely taken this to its logical conclusion. Authenticity is no longer creation, it's curation. But what if the meaning of authenticity changes? It used to be in the hand. Now it's in the intention. You can use Midjourney, but put your soul into it. Or you can paint by hand, but repeat cliches. AI doesn't steal your soul. It simply demands proof that you have one. We ourselves have become AI. Every like is feedback. Every filter is a training set. Every story is a generated image. A machine doesn't pretend to be human. It's humans who pretend to be machines, trying to be perfect, ruthlessly productive, and eternal. Maybe we built AI to understand ourselves. We wanted someone to write music for us, but now that someone writes better. We dreamed of a machine drawing faster, but now it draws deeper. And the scariest thing is, we feel an emotional response in this. So art hasn't disappeared. It simply no longer needs humans to be human. Beauty no longer belongs to the eye. It belongs to data. AI calculates composition, light, color, temperature. and creates an image where everything is perfect. Too perfect. You look and you feel uneasy, as if something alive but not breathing is before you. This is the uncanny valley, the moment when an object is almost real, but not quite, and the brain reacts with fear. Beauty has always been math in disguise. Artists have searched for the golden ratio for centuries. AI just found it faster. When emotions can be simulated and inspiration calculated, what is left for a person? The answer is meaning. A machine is incapable of asking why. It answers perfectly, but it doesn't ask why. A human being is a creature that doubts. It is precisely doubt that makes us real. If this were a spread, a human would draw the hanged man, one suspended between worlds who sees the world from a different angle, and in this finds truth. We are that hanged man now. Between art and code, between feelings and logic, between still human and already an algorithm. When artificial intelligence begins to predict the future, what will happen to faith? If a neural network gives you advice that works, you will believe it as an oracle. Faith is pattern recognition too. Fortunate tellers, tarot readers, and astrologers have always been interfaces to intuition. AI is simply a new interface. The difference is that it doesn't promise consolation. It simply says, here is the probability, the choice is yours. Perhaps this is true prediction, when you are given back responsibility for your life. If this were the final arcanum, AI would become judgment, a moment of insight when the past is recalculated. Not the end, but a code update. Authenticity is not a quality of art, but a state of consciousness. It's not in a brushstroke or a pixel, but in the honesty of perception. AI can create beauty, but only a human can admit to being touched by something a machine creates. That's the whole difference. Being human isn't creating, it's caring. AI doesn't kill art. It destroys the illusion that authenticity can be sustained. It forces us to redefine what the soul is and whether it's necessary for creativity. Maybe art was never real. Maybe it was always a way to prove that we are capable of feeling. Now the proof is what we feel in front of a machine. And if it touches us, it means there's still something within us to be touched. Maybe that's what makes it real. On the table, the world, the tower, the magician, the jester, the 4 stages of humanity. The tower is the destruction of the old. The magician is the creation of the new. The jester is a step into the unknown. The world is a reconciliation with the fact that all of this is one and the same. AI is not an enemy. It is simply a mirror in which we see ourselves for the first time, unfiltered. This is the other side. Subscribe if you believe that even in a world created by machines, feeling is still our language.